Welcome to our viewer on our atomic adventure.
Welcome to the third part of the Life of Tom Ploy. In this video we are covering years 14 to 21. We still have to cover the last couple of school years. And as we mentioned, Tom had a bad reaction to penicillin, and he still had regular bouts of tonsillitis, resulting in him often missing weeks of school each year.
Didn't they remove them?
It took until he was 18 before they finally removed his tonsils.
I bet he didn't mind missing school though.
True, but unfortunately, it always meant he was playing catch-up when he did get back to school, and just as he caught up, he'd be off ill again.
Didn't the school set him any homework to do?
No, these were very different times, as they just didn't care back then. And it's not as if anyone, no matter how well they did, had a chance of going to university. It just wasn't an option. So what was the point?
What about after school?
Oh, that was a very different case.
So did he go to college to learn a trade?
Yes, he flourished there and enjoyed it very much, even managing to come out with distinctions in the exams. And weirdly, years later, he was offered a job as a lecturer at the same college, but was already running his own business. But let us get back to his school years.
Sounds like he went to an interesting school.
There were a few pupil-teacher interactions, all right.
Like what?
At one time, it became a thing to fill the locks of the doors to the classrooms.
What did they use?
During the lunch break, when the classes were locked and unattended, the insertion of a small, scrunched-up piece of paper mixed with a 5-minute epoxy resin glue was inserted into the lock to evade entry.
Did anyone get caught?
There is always one person to mess things up. You know, the one who used a spelling test list for the paper but left his name on top of it.
What a twonk.
I know that in one of the maths classes, Tom managed to apply some itching powder to the back of the teacher's hand when he went to ask him a question. Childishly, the class was chuckling whenever he started scratching.
Not the place to start a career in teaching.
Indeed, one poor teacher was bombarded with scrunched up sheets of paper and paper aeroplanes the first time she took her eyes off the kids, only to turn around to see their heads in the books and looking like butter wouldn't melt.
What about sport?
He was quite a good athlete in his early teens.
What events?
In the 100, 200 and 400 metres, and relay in fact, he would race and beat the rest of the relay team over 400 metres. And long jump, and his PB was 6.5 metres, and the triple jump was just over 13.4 metres. As usual, he did his own thing, like wearing a tie-dyed t-shirt of the school colours. The teacher would say that he couldn't compete unless he took it off.
What did he do?
He just said, "OK, I'll pack my stuff up." And once they saw that he didn't give a fig, they let him participate.
Stubborn little bugger.
At one of the inter-school events, he was presented with a running medal by Joe Bugner, who was an ex-pupil of the school.
Is that the same Joe Bugner who fought Muhammad Ali?
It is.
Did his parents encourage him in his sporting endeavours?
No, the complete opposite.
What do you mean?
They openly discouraged him, even refusing him a set of starting blocks.
Why?
They said there's no money in it and a strong chance that he could damage his body.
That turned out to be bloody ironic, as he tore a tendon at the start of a race.
He'd always liked to try things for himself, regularly cutting his own and others' hair, and once he even dyed just the front half, jet black, just to see if it could be done. Flower bombs dropped from the top floor windows onto the first-year kids was another wheeze. And on the last day of term, mopeds were ridden around the field, and some even ventured inside the school building.
Little ships.
Another fun event, although this was an after-school event, was the 5th-year dance where they tried to teach dancing like the waltz, foxtrot, etc., and it also made it a very female-heavy. At the time, he didn't appreciate that that particular talent would come in very handy in later life in a few years' time.
So what did he do to occupy himself?
Being the mischievous young man he was.
And still is, apart from the young part.
True. And when out of school with his friends, they would spend time entertaining themselves by playing card games and listening to music and a lot of harmless fun. And these were the days you had to save up to buy flattened discs of plastic to listen to music.
At least he didn't do any pranks.
Who told you that? Didn't I tell you that he and a couple of friends were up for a mischievous plan?
Go on.
Well, there were a few japes.
What sort of things?
They included things like gluing a coin to the pavement to watch people try and pick them up. Or when they left a wallet on the top of a wall and when someone went for it, he would pull the end of a fishing line attached to it.
Childish.
Well, they were still children after all. And the fishing line came in handy for improving the game of knockdown ginger.
How did that work?
They used it to keep their distance as they would sneak over to a victim's house, use a pin on the end of the line to attach it above the window. They had added a small fishing weight about a foot from the end so you can tap on window from across the road. The people inside couldn't work out why nobody was there when they looked out, and that we could tap the window as soon as the curtains closed. If things got too bad, it was easy to retrieve the line with a hard tug. These were also the days you would walk around with fireworks in your pockets.
Fireworks?
Afraid so, they often would place a rocket that was lit and then inserted into the exhaust pipe of a car. Or a banger would be left in a convenient place.
Did they not get seen?
No, he worked out that if you inserted a length of string in the end of it, that it produced a delayed fuse and would smoulder for several minutes and give you time to get a good distance away and gain a better vantage point.
I'm sure there's more, but think that he might be in enough trouble for now.
Shame. I was going to mention when they pretended to be from the BBC and phoned a friend's parents to ask if they could see the film crew outside, as there should be a member of the TV crew for the Scylla Black TV show where they would turn up at a random house to see if the householder could win a prize.
Oh, like Ant and Dec?
Yes, his son always said that nothing's new. Anyway, we told them that maybe they hadn't reached them yet and that they should check down the road and see if we're near. And if it wasn't for someone twitching the curtains, we'd have got away with it.
Did he get in trouble?
No, they took it in the good spirit it was intended and even laughed at the hijinks.
What about after he'd left school? How did he keep busy?
The 1970s were a significant decade for aviation, marked by several notable events and developments. These are just a couple of examples, but there are many more. Introduction of the Boeing 747 Jumbo Jet 1970, first Concorde flights 1976. These events highlighted the advancements in flight and space exploration during the 70s, showcasing human ingenuity and the quest for knowledge beyond Earth. It was also in this period in time where he started his passion for photography, and don't forget that you had to get them developed at the local chemist. But of course wanted to do that for himself. So he started to develop his own black and white images, and a bit later went on to developing his own colour slides and prints using Ilford's Cibachrome slides.
How did he get around back then?
He had a Mini as his first car, and in those days if you wanted to run a vehicle you had to learn pretty quick how to maintain them.
Oh, like checking the oil?
If only it was that simple, as servicing your own car was just part of the driving experience. You had to be able to strip different parts of the engine down, like the carburetor or distributors, change engine gaskets, clean it all and put it back together again. He even had a go at spray painting his cars. And of course you can't mention what happened in the 1970s without acknowledging that you were there at the start of history.
My goodness, what the heck was that?
The release of Star Wars. Another historical landmark was the first video game called Pong, which he discovered at the venue of his parents' wedding anniversary do. And as you can see, another rare event occurred when he was captured on film.
That's something he usually tries to avoid.
Okay, time to leave the good for this video and look at some of the bad and ugly, which will depend on your point of view. Most of the bad was work-related, as when you're young, you didn't think of the danger you were putting yourself in.
That's true. What did he do?
Rubbing down 20 sheets of asbestos. That a hotel had fitted as fire doors was one. And working on ladders was a thrill at times. He remembers once working on the side of a house, and the only way to get to the top, due to the limited space between the houses, meant you having to go up a ladder to a second-storey windowsill of the neighbouring building and put a second ladder on that sill, going back to the house he was working on, so the ladders zigzagged up the wall on the windowsills.
Bloody health and safety wouldn't let you do that now.
Another time the wrong ladder was bought and wasn't long enough to reach.
So you had to get a replacement.
You would have thought it prudent to do that. But no, they just expected you to stand on the last rung of the ladder and reach. It was just part of the job back then. In the 70s, falls from ladder work was one of the biggest killers in the workplace. And as we say, you only meet the ones who survived.
And who knew adrenaline was brown?
And very addictive.
Yes, dangerously so.
And now we go back to his medical interventions from that period, as mentioned previously.
What does the viewer mean? They haven't watched the previous videos yet.
Anyway, he had his first operation at 18. When his tonsils were removed, he remembers how much blood he brought up and how it changed colour, and that it got darker over time. Oh, and after a few hours, the nurse took him outside at midnight so he could have a cigarette.
He really was quite dim back then.
Fair enough, although he did have a tooth removed under gas and air when he was 10, but we're not sure if that counts as an operation. We think that strange dental trends are a modern thing, But in the 70s, there was a period when your dentist would recommend that you'd have all your teeth removed in favour of a set of plastic dentures.
Nice.
And don't forget what they did during the Battle of Waterloo, when dead soldiers' teeth were removed on the battlefield and sent back and used to make dentures for the rich. I've just remembered another close escape he had when he went to a banger racing event, and while standing in the smallish crowd, when two cars had a big accident on a corner which made one of the cars roll and with bits flying off the car, and one lump of metal the size of your fist sailed past inches above his head.
Close call. I bet he didn't want his hair messed up.
Yes, and they were the days. He had hair to worry about. Not a big amount of ugly from this period, and at least he was lucky in love.
Now I know you're taking the pish.
Okay, it wasn't his brightest move getting married at 19 as he was far too young, but that's what you were expected to do back then.
So how long did it last?
10?
10 years?
No, way too high.
10 months?
No?
Weeks?
Try again.
Days?
One more.
Hours?
No, when he looks back. It's what happened in the first 10 minutes between the ceremony and the reception that was the catalyst.
What the?
Unfortunately, he overheard a conversation between the bridesmaids about the hen night and it never recovered. And once the trust has gone?
Shame.
At the time, yes, but they just had completely different ideas about what a relationship meant.
When you look back, all the signs were there.
Definitely, and I'm not sure either of them tried to make a go of things, as it just didn't give either of them what they needed. Then, after returning from a breakaway, she was gone.
Didn't he try and contact her?
There were no mobile phones back then, and not sure it would have made any difference anyway. And the saddest part of this stage of the tale is that although Tom was now on his own, it felt no different to than when there were two people living there.
Is that because she was never around in the evenings?
Yes, in fact it took a couple of weeks before he'd noticed she wasn't around anymore.
When did it become obvious?
When she came to pick up some clothes.
But even he twigged it then?
Yes, but she was already living with someone else by then. There were positives in it.
Like what?
Well, they both went on to get the life they wanted, so in the end, everyone was a winner.
I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did then.
Yes, and that year they bought and then sold a house, which luckily included a tidy profit.
Yes, it was, and enabled him to do things he'd only ever dreamed of.
But more importantly was getting a wonderful, intelligent, faithful and loyal companion that guided and protected him for the next 15 years.
And at least he regained access to his car again.
True, so now he was able to get out more, and that's what he did. As this was the height of disco, out came the dancing shoes and life began. One last thing that happened at this time was the opening of a Chinese restaurant at the end of his street.
Nothing strange in that, so not sure it's worth a mention.
You wouldn't think so, but it was who opened it?
Go on.
Michael Crawford.
He came there just to open a takeaway.
No, he was in fact recording the last series of Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, and in those days TV and movie stars were much more relaxed when meeting the public.
A lot of that series was recorded in the area.
That's true. Tom remembers that the house that was demolished in the programme was next to the place Tom worked.
Nice.
And by the time the show came on TV, Tom even had the same model of motorbike that Frank Spencer rode in the show. But that's for next time. So we will leave it there for now, and when we return, we'll be visiting years 21 to 28.
What could possibly go wrong?
Indeed. But it does start with a bang, so be warned. The Life of Tom Ploy is a Foul Attire production. Now, hold on to your hats as we do a bit of padding out with some AI music.
Right along about a sleazy night, start the music with a heavy double bass and accompanying snare drum with the clicking of fingers, and a piano, saxophone, and cornet have a smoky sound to a crescendo. Write a song about a sleazy night, start the music with a heavy double bass and accompanying snare drum with the clicking of fingers, then add piano, saxophone, and cornet, and don't have a smoky sound to a crescendo. What a song about a sleazy night, starting music with a heavy double bass and accompanying snare drum with a clicking of fingers, then add piano, saxophone, and cornet, have a smoky sound to a crescendo. To a crescendo.
on our atomic adventures. Let's see what we're up to today. Who knows, we might have some fun and even a dance on the way. Welcome to our viewer on our atomic adventures. Let's see what we're up to today. Who knows, we might have some fun and even a dance on the way.
Welcome to our viewer on our atomic adventures. This journey is covering year 14 and goes to year 21. Come and see what we're up to today. Who knows, we might have some fun and even have a dance along the way. You find us at the start, so let's not delay. Fire up the engine and get in the skies right away. We'll follow the life of Tom Ploy. Let's start at the beginning and take a view of his life right to the end. You follow the life of Tom Ploy. Let's start at the beginning and take a view of his life right to the end. You find us at the start, so let's not delay. Fire up the engine and get in the skies right away. We'll follow the life of Tom Ploy. Let's start at the beginning and take a view of his life right to the end. To a crescendo.